So I just heard your comment about co-parenting, and I know some people who are co-parenting now or kind of just taking the parenting life as if it's just, oh, it's easy. If it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And that's not how the child sees it. I work with kids actually. I'm a speech therapist and I work with children. And I deal with those kids every day where co-parenting just isn't working out. And it really isn't working out for the child. Make sure you have a strong foundation in that relationship. Otherwise, it can be detrimental for you, yes, but incredibly detrimental for that child. Especially because when we're babies and born into this world, the only thing we know is our parents. That's where we find out what love is. And if we don't see it from the co-parenting, then do we really know what kind of love we deserve or what kind of love we should get? Onward, Theo. Gang, gang.
Gang, gang. Sarah, I appreciate that. That's a really interesting thought. Yeah, because if you're just co-parents and the children, now you could still show the child some love. The children will feel love from a male parent and a female parent, or it could be, same-sex parents. But I think that, I feel like you're going to get more of a full batch if you have that male-female. That's, it's been the recipe. It's been Mother Nature's recipe to have the male-female. But yeah, it's like you'll get the kid will still get the love from a parent, a male parent and a female parent, but they won't maybe see the example of love. So they might not see the parents love each other. They may not see, there's like an element that they could really miss. So yeah, I hadn't really thought about that exactly. That if you live on one street and your kid lives, if you live on one street with your kid and the dad lives across the street or down the way and you guys are just kind of, back and forth, it may feel kind of it might not be continuous parenting. It may kind of start and stop here and there. And then also kids might start to learn, well, love is just, you get love from one person, from a mom or from a dad, and it's not also something you see. So if they don't see the love between the parents, so then the kid could feel like that love isn't something that's even in the world, because I've never seen an example of it. It's just, I get love from my mom here, I get love from my dad here, but I don't see an example of love between two people that are, like in a marriage, or two people, like a man and a woman that love each other. So then the kid might grow up and not really feel an attraction to anybody. They might be fully asexual. Them asexers. So that's interesting. I appreciate you sharing that. Thanks for calling in, Sarah. And look, once again, thanks for, sharing that story 2 episodes ago about dropping that HJ on your husband back in the day while your dad was driving y'all around, man. That episode really, I think, took us all to a beautiful place and time that you can only exist in as a child, and as a first time when you get that first touch. Let's take another call that came in here. Here we go.
Hey, Theo. This is Vivian from Los Angeles.
Hey, Vivian from LA. Thank you for calling in. Onward.
I was listening to last week's episode, and I thought I'd share a story. My mom and dad were really young when they had me. My mom was 19, and
Oh, yeah. That's beautiful.
my dad was a couple years older.
Oh, yeah. So he's trying to be wild like that with the young ladies. I've done it. I feel it. Onward.
They never got married. For some time, I was really young, and they lived apart from each other and, tossed me back and forth between them. But once I actually got into elementary school, they decided to move in together and become roommates in Chicago. Nothing romantic or anything like that. They just wanted, to co-parent together in the same household. And honestly, it was my favorite time of my childhood. So, yeah, if any single parents are considering co-parenting in the same household, I could say from my experience, it was really, really good for me, and actually, I just kind of miss it. But yeah, gang, gang.
Thank you for calling in. Let me look up really quick the definition of co-parenting, just so I'm operating on a clean. Co-parenting. Share the duties of parenting, especially of a separated or unmarried couple. So basically it is co-parenting, sometimes called joint parenting or shared parenting, is the experience of raising children as a single parent when separation or divorce occurs. However, placing the sole focus on your children can be a great way of helping to make co-parenting a positive experience. So it's where the parents are single, but they're both raising the child. So that could be in a couple of ways where, you guys are, you guys are divorced. It could be that you guys are, like this situation, roommates. So obviously there is something special that happens when, as a child, then from your perception, when both your parents are in the same place. And you know what? I could really imagine that. It's like, because with parents, you can play one off of the other. It's fun to see them interact. They're like this. When you're a kid, your parents are like this weird comedy duo. Sometimes it's just cruising around the house, just trying to take away your privileges. So it's really interesting to have, I guess, to get to see them at the same time interact with each other. It could be kind of lonesome if you just go to your dad's house and he's just being, kind of sad or something, or looking up escorts or just being like a nice guy. Or you go to your mom's house and she's just kind of being sad or buying these crazy, high-powered sexual toys, these real, these crotch, damn, John Deere's making things for women's crotches now, and it is just, good God. I mean, they got some things that run on gas powered. You gotta float the choke a little bit before you can even get that thing to start up. And so that's really, I don't know what's going on. So yeah, I think seeing those parents, getting to see your parents kind of give each other a wet willy or tickle each other, or or try on scarves or different things like that. There's going to be something special there, having that moment where you're, maybe playing hide and go seek and both your parents are there to play with you. There is something about having them in the same house. So now maybe if your parents, like you said, your parents just happen to live together, they weren't married, but they lived in the same house. So maybe co-parenting is more effective if the parents are living in the same home, even if they're not married, but they're there together at the same time, which I could imagine, because from what I hear, there's a lot of like something that happens with like a nesting, where it feels like you're in a nest, in a safe place where you can grow. Your mom is there to nurture you. Your father is there to take care of and provide. And it feels probably very natural to us because a lot of species do it. You see this show, they got a thing called, what is it? Penguin, I don't know, Polar Express or something. Maybe it's like about a bunch of penguins. It's on the nature show. They have a bunch of penguins, and these guys, they're penguins. I don't know if you know what penguins are. They're basically, they act like kind of like little bitches. I mean, they don't, they kind of short with people. They always like just, they don't even really, they just sitting over there giving you that, who's that guy? That Slumberjay arm. What's your boy? He could barely point at the oil. John McCain, he got that low hitter. He just got that, he's very, he got that half mast, baby, and, that's how they raise their arm, little penguins. They don't do much. The guys all kind of huddle around, and then the women, they get pissed and they jump off of the mountain and go get a belly of fish. And then they come back, one of them vomits into the child, and then the other one goes out. But I think as the child, to see your parents just doing that shift, that, that teamwork, that tandem, you realize, I bet you learn a lot about what it takes as a team, as a tandem to make it work. My parents, I remember my dad liked to sleep in his car at the park. And he would sometimes drink too much, and he would just stay outside and just sleep in his car in front of the house. And he used to have a lot of cups of like different Mardi Gras doubloons from the parade. And he would just throw them out of his car when he was driving, like kind of like he was his own little parade a little bit. He was also 80 years old at this point, or 78 or something. But yeah, sometimes he would get a little bit of free champagne because one of his friends worked at the champagne distillery, and he would drive over old champagne. And my dad, I know, would sit out on the porch sometimes and, chug down a half a bottle of old champagne, and I would be out there, and he would let me smell his breath because I liked the way that the champagne smelled. But then I think it's just fun as a kid to have both of the parents around. It's something real. Jesus. I think just, there's enough kids already that are raised by single parents. It's just a little hectic. It's not the same vibe. But maybe that's where we're headed. And if we are headed there as a species, because we're such in this me generation and, myself and a lot of us are there not even by choice. It's like, social media really puts us in our own world and our own perceptions. And, we have our own Facebook page. We have our own IG. We have our own Snapchats. We have our own whatever it is, TikToks or whatever. It's all our own personal things that we start to look at as our lives, as our world, just as ourselves. It's just me. It's just me. So if that's where we're headed as people, then co-parenting might be the only viable possibility. Because if your parents aren't going to live together, they're not going to stay married, or they don't want to be married. Then at least if they can live together in an environment where they can raise a child. So I don't know. I'm thinking a lot about that kind of stuff just today for some reason. Fuck, man, I'm fucking tired. You ever sleep a lot and you're tired? You're like, dang, dude, what was I doing in my dream? Was running a lot or something? But thank you for calling in. Maybe there'll be a turn where people start to, really make good choices about relationships, and you see a lot more kids getting raised in the nest. And you see just, you'll see more of that vibe a little bit. But yeah, that hockey puck kind of style of child raising, I don't know. I've never done it, but I don't know I don't know if it's super healthy. I don't know. And then sometimes you don't know. Sometimes some kids is just made out of, fish and snails and puppy dog pails, or whatever. Cinnamon and spice and nothing nice or whatever. You got a kid who's got fucking, made out of 70 grams of damn nutmeg in his neck, and he's never going to get it together. So some of that is just kind of God's plan. But my family was never really close when I was growing up. So it's kind of, I feel like we've always almost looked at each other as these separate entities than we have as a group. And actually, even to go back to the co-parenting stuff, I feel like in some ways I've really struggled because of that. I remember I only saw my father kiss my mother one time, and it was on the top of her head it was her birthday. And she was pissed off about it, kind of. And they'd each been having, they'd had a little bit of that champagne. That guy dropped some off, and my dad always said he bought it, but, him and the guy, we'd hear him fight about the prices of the champagne and shit on the porch. And the shit was free. So my dad's like, you getting, we all know this is, old stale champagne. So, but anyway, he brought in a bottle for my mom's birthday, and then he kissed her on the top of the head, and I just remember seeing my mom just be disappointed. And I was already such an aware kid. I'm not saying that damaged me or changed my life or anything. I was already predestined to have a level of, I think, awareness as a child that I was going to be highly sensitive. But to go back to just a previous, my family didn't build up those connections. I didn't really have an understanding of relationships. My father slept on the couch always. I never saw him and I didn't even know that they had a room together. I didn't even understand it. So, I think I definitely picked up on that energy. I don't know if I could ever share a room with a woman. I used to talk about that sometimes. If I ever got a house or something, I would have to get maybe a different room for my wife or a separate house. That sounds crazy, man, but that's just, I don't know. And maybe I can defeat that over time, but man, there's something that's, I don't know if I was out there and I remember on Christmas I would go out there and my dad would be on the couch all the time and it was just kind of weird. But I don't know, as a young man, as a young kid, if you go out, I remember feeling sorry for my dad. I felt bad for him. And I remember like my mom was in this closed off space at the other end of the house. It wasn't really closed off, but there was like a couple doors, that usually at night I think were closed. And so I could go knock or something on him, but my dad was there. He was accessible. He was on the couch. And so I would, end up seeing him, and he was kind of awkward and uncomfortable maybe, and also older and probably asleep and smelling like champagne. And so my mom always felt closed off to me. She felt far away, I think, when I was a kid. And my dad probably felt rejected or emasculated or let down. And those energies, I think, do float around in the air. They float around in the air and they land in a child. Sometimes in ways we don't know, in places we don't know, and they land in a child. Look, I'm just kind of guesstimating, trying to just go through my own, my own history, like searching my browser history of my own brain and feelings. But so we didn't have that connection, is what I'm saying. We didn't have a lot of those connections. Me and my sisters, my dad left and then he passed away. I went to live with friends at 14. We were always separate entities. So if they were to be upset about things, I think they probably learned more about me through this. And sometimes I think the only reason I even do this podcast is just kind of, in this real far-fetched circle is so maybe just so my mother will know who I am a little bit or something. I don't know, that might sound crazy, but so sometimes I hope that she listens, But I don't know if she and I are at the communication level where she would ever, she'll say sometimes, I saw some of your podcasts or I saw a clip, but I don't know if she, I don't know. I mean, sometimes I feel like, I've said it before, that most of my life is has been just a desperate, just miscellaneous, just errant and confused attempt to try and connect with my mother, probably. And not even an attempt that I'm always conscious of. Sometimes an attempt that's just, just like somebody throwing just rocks into like a lake at night or something. And they're also are into the ocean at night, and they're also sleepwalking, so they don't even know they're doing it. It's interesting I wish I could really had a good chart of everything I've ever done in my life, because I bet there's a lot of just miscellaneous patterns that I've had that have just been attempts to connect with a mother or with someone, with a parent, with someone, or with myself even maybe. I'm not sure. But sometimes I wonder if all of us, what we do is just some reflection or some inverse. Our behaviors are just an inverse of our behaviors are just an inverse of like unsettled emotional debts that we have with our parents or with our childhood or with, like, if everything we do is just this kind of mummy, kind of like this zombie walk to fill these couple little things that were never filled, these couple needs as a child. I don't know, but that's why, I do think that the parenting is very important, because you're just going to give the kid the best shot. So you can't have the kid fucking Uber in 2 hours to go meet the other one. I think that's a little tricky, or it's just not ideal. But then also, that's a lot of where we are these days. That's a lot of where we are. But moving forward, we can do it different. So if our parents were far away from each other, moving forward, it's like, well, am I able to have an adult conversation with this man or this woman and say, hey, I know we have this kid, we disagree with, we're not in love, but can we cohabitate or be in the same space or close enough to each other where we can have an effect on this kid's life easily? But just because it could be something that's really going to start popping off, or it could not be. We don't know which way the tide's always going to go. Sometimes the moon will get tricky and kind of do a different pull on the water. Wow, what's crazy is my sister can't even read. But what does it have to do with us right now? Hope you enjoyed that video, and you can watch another. And you can watch this one, you can watch this one. Different options, different choices. Some guy just brings you one option, not this guy. 2 options. Watch one, this one or this one.